Good afternoon. My name is Chris Leak, and I would like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to first welcome everyone to the May 11th, 2023 meeting of the City County Planning Board. Would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. George too. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you. Today's meeting is being broadcast live on TV 13 and will be rebroadcast at 10 a.m. Friday morning and again at 4 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Our first order of business today will be the consent agenda. These are items for which the petitioner is requesting withdrawal or continuance, or items for which staff has recommended approval and no one has signed up to speak in opposition. For all public hearings, each side will have a total of 12 minutes. There will be no rebuttal period. Once the public hearing is closed and the board goes into work session, no one is permitted to speak unless a planning board member asks them a question. For general use district zoning requests, the planning board must consider the full range of uses allowed in the zoning district being requested. The petitioner may not refer to a specific use for the property. For special use district zoning requests, however, the petitioner must identify the intended use or uses of the site and give specific details on how the site will be developed. Items under Section B of the agenda will require final action by the appropriate elected body, either the City Council or County Commissioners. As such, votes taken by the Planning Board concerning these items are recommendations that will be considered by the elected bodies during their review of the requests. Before addressing the Planning Board today, we would need your name, address, and zip code for the record. Our first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the April 13th and April 27th meetings. Are there any additions or corrections? Is there a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Grubbs. Any discussion? All those in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. That is unanimous. I'm now going to call on Mr. Mark Allred Brian today. Brian Wilson to review the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Brian.
The first item on the consent agenda tonight is item B1. That's W3565. That item has now been withdrawn by the petitioner. Just for your information, they are continuing to go forward with their annexation request, so you may see a zoning conversion request in the near future. The next three items on the agenda tonight are items B4, C1, and D1. They have already been automatically continued to your June 8th Planning Board hearing to resolve various site plan issues. The next item is item B2. That's case W3572. Petitioner is the Liberty Group LLC. They're requesting a rezoning from LI to PBL. It's a approximately 0.15 acre site located on the west side of Oak Street between West 8th Street and West 10th Street. Just a reminder, they did originally come in for a general use request to PB. The petitioner has subsequently removed the single-use convenience store in response to neighborhood comments and concerns. So all the other uses are still there, but the convenience store was pulled out. So you see in the location map, it is surrounded by large sections of PB that have subsequently been rezoned, and the site is within growth management area 2. This is the 2022 aerial. Again, you can see the condominiums to the north and the PB zoned section to the north there. And then, of course, the Atro apartments there under construction. I believe they're nearing finishing construction there across Oak Street to the east. The area plan parcel-specific recommendation for this site was institutional in recognition of prior ownership. Just to give a little more context, this area does lie within a special land use consideration area. And within that land use consideration, the area plan recommends keeping a flexible outlook and supports growth and expansion of any existing industrial uses, but also supported ventures that develop newer or convert existing industrial buildings to residential or a mixture of residential, commercial, and office uses. So the PB district is actually purpose-built for that. Therefore, staff does recommend approval of this rezoning request, and it is consistent with legacy in the area plan.
Are there any
Answer
questions for staff? All right, thank you, Mr. Wilson. No one has signed up. Is anyone here opposed to this recommendation? Seeing no one, I declare the public hearing closed. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move the planning board find that the request is consistent with the comp plan.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Grubbs. Any discussion? All those in favor, sign of aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. That is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I further move the planning board recommend approval of W 3572.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Grubbs. Any discussion? All those in favor, sign of aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is unanimous.
All right, next item on the agenda is item B3. That's case W3573. Petitioner are Daniel and Olivia Calhoun. They're requesting to rezone an RS7 zone property to RSQ. Property is approximately 0.27 acres in size, located on the south side of Crestwood Drive between Hutton Street and Granville Drive. Just to give a little more context, you can see the RMUS zoned area to the north that contains a large apartment complex. You can also see a large area of RSQ zoning less than 500 feet there to the west. The site does lie within growth management area 2 as well. This is the aerial of the property. It's currently vacant and undeveloped. Just to give a little more context, the site was formerly a triplex structure. It had a triplex structure on site that was destroyed by a fire. The structure was not constructed within the 1-year time limit for legal non-conforming use. Again, you can't have a triplex in RS7 zoning. Therefore, rezoning is now being pursued to allow for that new multifamily structure to be built. The proposed land use map recognized that existing structure at the time of the area plan adoption. Did recommend intermediate density residential land use from 8 to 18 dwelling units per acre. Legacy does encourage a mixture of residential densities and housing types throughout land use recommendations. This rezoning would allow for the construction of needed missing middle housing units in the serviceable land area near in proximity to an activity center and with access to public services. Therefore, staff does recommend approval of this request. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? No one has signed up. Is anyone here opposed to this recommendation?
I'm not opposed, I just am here for information as this does concern me.
All right, thank you. All right. Seeing no one in opposition, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the planning board find that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Grubbs. Any discussion? All those in favor, sign of aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. That is unanimous.
And Mr. Chairman, I further move the planning board recommend approval of W 3573.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Grubbs. Any discussion?
I have a comment. So I was president of the neighborhood, West-Salem neighborhood, when this house burnt down. And I know it's been a long time, so it's kind of nice to see this finally moving along.
Yeah. All right. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, sign of aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. That is unanimous. Thank you. Ma'am, if you don't get all of your questions answered, you can go to a staff person, but the motion did pass. All right. Thank you.
I have to attend the next meeting.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the next item is item B5. That's case number W3580. Petitioner is Taylor Development Group, LLC. They are requesting to rezone an RM18, RM8, and RS9 zone property to RS7. The site is approximately 5.09 acres, located on the east side of North Cliffdale Drive between Country Club Road and Guinevere Lane. It is just barely in Growth Management Area 3. Just to give a little more context, the site is surrounded by RS9 zoning to the north and to the west, but it also has low-density attached RM5 zoning to the east and to the south. So you can see it is a transitional area from the multifamily district to single-family. The aerial shows the site is currently generally undeveloped and heavily wooded. It also shows in the RM18 zone portion, there are approximately 2 or 3 pads there. There were some multifamily buildings there at one time that were demolished. This is the area plan recommendation. You can see that it recognizes the existing RM18 zoning there and the darker color there. Let me highlight that for you. Right here. And then the additional recommendation of low-density attached residential 0 to 8 dwelling units per acre surrounding that property. This rezoning would allow for the development of 3 vacant parcels for single-family homes at an appropriate density and scale in keeping with both the recommendations of Legacy and the area plan. Staff does recommend approval of this general use zoning request, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Just one, please. There was some concern in the area about the impact regarding stormwater management on adjacent properties. Would you briefly address that?
I'd be happy to. We do have Joe Fogarty with the Stormwater Division here. If you have specific engineering questions, I can generally state.
Over my head.
Yeah, I can. Well, I can generally state that this property drains to the east and not to the west. So it's going to drain southwest towards Silas Creek, as opposed to this other development, which is. I'm sorry, my highlighter apparently isn't working.
I was just saying, I don't think it's showing up, but the large piece of property that's on there that's labeled Emin Court, the largest orange piece of property was, they actually had petitioned for a rezoning several years ago and decided to withdraw that and decided to develop it under existing zoning. That's been developed as a single-family subdivision, as you saw perhaps on the aerial earlier. All of that property is draining to the northwest. You can see the drainage pattern of those streams. That's where there has been cited some issues with storm drainage. And again, the project that got constructed meets the requirements of the city code related to stormwater. The subject property that's being rezoned, where Brian is currently on, all of that's going to be draining to the northeast. But it will also have to go through the same approval process through stormwater, streets. I mean, everyone will have to review it just like they do any other project. But again, this is a general use request. So I want to caution you, there was something in your packet that showed a potential design, but that was what they had discussed with the neighbors. There's nothing with this action that holds them to that design. They would be able to build 31 units there consistent with RS7 zoning in the acreage. So I do want to make sure that that is understood. I'm not questioning what the developer is doing, but again, this is a general use request. So you must consider the full range of uses and the full density allowed. So I do want to caution the board on that. But I hope that answered your question.
That's helpful. Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions? Thank you. No one has signed up. Is anyone here opposed to this recommendation?
I'm like her. I'm not opposed, but I do live right across the road, and I am very concerned about the drainage, as he said. And my letter is in your packet.
Yes.
Letha Drouillard is my name. And this is pretty Madon. She is going to be, quote, dumped on by the water.
Okay. Thank you. Again, Ms. Arbery, if you don't mind giving her your card. No one has signed up.
She's got my number.
Okay. So no one has signed up in opposition. I'm going to declare the public hearing closed with that. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move the planning board find that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Grubbs. Any discussion? All those in favor, sign of aye. Aye. Oppose the same sign. That is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I further move the planning board recommend approval of W3580.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Grubbs. Any discussion? All those in favor, sign of aye. Aye. Oppose the same sign. That is unanimous. That does pass.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is item D2. That's PBR 2023-09. This is for the Chandler Point Phase 6 site plan. They're proposing a 94-lot planned residential development in an RS9 zoning district. The site is approximately 21.79 acres located at the terminus of Capstone and Weather End Drive. So Capstone is up here to the north, and then Weather End is right here to the south. Just to give a little more history lesson, this parcel was part of a preliminary approval for a surrounding PRD that was approved in approximately 2005. That phase was never developed and then was subsequently sold to Forsyth County School System in 2009. Again, the property has since changed hands back to the same development company, but as a result, the subsequent request would require a new preliminary approval that meets current PRD requirement. This is a proposed site plan. You can see that proposes a new through street connecting Capstone and Weather End with 3 new public streets, one of those being the small street here for the cul-de-sac. The petitioner does show the required active open space highlighted in green. There is a proposed stormwater device in the southeastern portion of the site. There was some discussion about the potentiality for connecting, I believe that's called, the proposed name is Ashton. And there were sound engineering reasons as to why that through-street connection could not be completed. There are 2 constructed single-family homes on either side, and there's a tremendous amount of topography there. And that stub was actually not completed at that time. That wasn't a requirement at that time when this was originally approved. The site plan does meet all UDO requirements, and staff recommends approval of this request. Be happy to answer any questions.
Move approval.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Grubbs. Any discussion?
I have a question. The Stub Street, since it wasn't developed, does it just become no man's land?
They're going to have it as passive open space as a part of this phase.
Oh,
But
okay.
it does contain utilities easements for utilities
Oh, it
connections.
does. Okay. Just wondering.
Passive open space.
Yes, sir. So all of the area that you see highlighted, including the stormwater pond, can be used as their passive open space calculation for the planned residential development. That is a UDO requirement, and they're including that as a part of that. So it's going to be common area for this.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any additional questions? All those in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same sign. That is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is item D3. That's PBR 2023-10. This is for the Crescent Hill planned residential development. Again, it's a 48-lot planned residential development in RS9 zoning district. The site is approximately 20.42 acres in size, located at the eastern terminus of Monarch Way, east of Caradco Court and Mercia Court. Again, a little more context on this one. What you're seeing here is essentially what was already come to you and was had a preliminary approval. The reason they're coming back for you today is they are now proposing private streets through this, and so that does require a review by the planning board. There were some other site modifications. Where I'm highlighting here, there was going to be kind of an eyebrow here, and they have since removed that, and they've increased the size of this cul-de-sac to meet current county fire requirements. Other than that, the active open space, lot count, configuration all remain the same. They're just essentially trying to get these private streets due to timing and working with NCDOT. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do the private streets meet our spec for public streets?
There is a condition in this approval that requires them to build it at public street standards.
Okay, so when the time comes,
They theoretically could turn them over. I don't know that they will. They wouldn't have to, but if they're built to our standards and they're maintained to our standards, these would be NCDOT, but if they're maintained to NCDOT standard, they theoretically could eventually be taken over as public streets.
What about sidewalks?
They're still shown on the
Okay,
site.
I just
Yes,
have a
that
hard
is
time seeing it at that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
does a private street allow a gate? I guess it does.
It theoretically does, but that would require some further modification because you have to have turnaround in case someone goes down in there and they
Okay.
they can't get through the gate. They have to have a turnaround area, so they would have to actually redesign it again.
Okay, all right. Did you finish?
Yes, sir.
Move approval.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Grubbs. Any discussion? All those in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same sign. That is unanimous.
All right, and the next item is item D4. That's PBR 2023-11. It's a petition by Quality Education Academy for a proposed addition for a public school in an IP zoning district. This has approximately 8.13 acres in size, located on the south side of Lansing Drive across from Lasley Drive. So the proposed site plan, just to give you a little bit more context as to where it's located, highlighted in blue is approximately two-story, 16,500 square foot building, and then they're proposing additional parking in the area highlighted in yellow. The site doesn't propose any other additional access points, and the plan does illustrate the required type 1 buffer yard to the west and the south against the single-family zone property there. The petitioner did volunteer elevations, therefore staff is recommending an elevations condition to make sure that that matches what they have proposed. The site plan does meet EDO requirements, and staff recommends approval of this request. Answer any questions?
Move approval with the elevations condition.
It's already on.
It's already in there, I'm sorry.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Grubbs. Any discussion? All those in favor, sign of aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. That is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, Ward, I think that takes it to me. That was fairly quick. That's good. Yeah. See, it's all Kirk's fault. Kirk's not here. We can blame it on Kirk. Kirk's on vacation, so I'm going to give you a quick preview of your work session. The work session for May, 2 weeks from today, will include a review of UDO CC 24, which is phase 2 of the updated UDO clear code graphics. More than likely, given the number of graphics and the number of pages that is, it may not get emailed out because it would be such a large file. We will probably just bring it to you at that meeting. And that is, again, it's not changing the UDO, it's just illustrating, either replacing out-of-date illustrations or providing new illustrations to aid in use. So it should not be anything that should be too controversial, but we will go over them at the meeting. If there are any questions that arise between that meeting and the public hearing, hopefully that we'll have in June, then we can try to answer those questions as we move forward. Dr. Marcus Barnett, our HR director, will be there just to provide some updates on, HR-related things. We've been trying to do a series of having different internal-facing and external-facing departments come in and just present to the planning board, and Dr. Barnett has agreed to come in and just talk about the HR hiring process. We may provide you just a brief update on the sign amortization process. We are, as we sit here today, a month and a half away from the 2024 deadline. It was originally 2022 was the 15-year amortization, but because of COVID, City Council granted 2 additional years. As we sit here today, the number of freestanding signs we have in Winston-Salem, I'm just going to give you some round numbers, 3,300 total signs. Of those, we only have about 680 that are not in compliance with the regulations, so we're about 79–80% compliant at this point. We've been sending notices all along. We're going to send another notice at the 1-year mark, which would be the June-July timeframe. And again, our goal at the end of this is not to be punitive. Our goal is, again, to try to work with folks to come into compliance. So our first action afterwards, we will send a notice, but our goal is not to fine folks. Our folks is, again, to let folks understand, yes, we're serious, you need to bring your sign into compliance, but our first action isn't going to be to issue fines. If someone says, okay, got your notice, I know you're serious now, it's going to take us 2 months to get the plans into you. Again, we're not going to fine folks, we just want compliance. And again, that's why we've been doing regular notices all along. So we'll provide an update there. It probably will be about what I just told you, but anyway. And then the last thing is I do want to provide you, it's that time of year where we do the work program, and I do have a draft work program for you to take home and look over. We'll have an opportunity to discuss this at the meeting as well in 2 weeks. Our hope would be that you would be able to review this between now and then, and if we can adopt it that day, that's fine. If not, then what we can do is carry it forward to your June public hearing meeting. And again, if there's more things that need to be addressed from there, we can actually even bring it back to your work session in June. We would just like to have this adopted, if possible, before the new fiscal year. There are not a lot of new things in here. Again, we're still about 6 or 7 staff members down, and we are working on the comp plan. So there's not a lot of new stuff, a lot of continuation of those kind of things. But if you would just take a look at it, if you have any questions, reach out to Kirk, Amy, or myself, and we'll be glad to try to answer any questions you have in preparation of that meeting.
Can I get someone to email this to George, Mr. Bryan, since he's not here?
Yes, that's no problem. We can.
Thank you.
Shelley, if you'll make note of that and just remind me. I'm not going to be in the office tomorrow. I'll get to that in a second.
Chris, will the HR gentleman speak about your open positions at our meeting, our work session? Like how we can get you guys staffed up?
Well, I mean, it would just be kind of the overall process, and, you know, we have been been in discussions about, you know, again, are there ways that we can try to bring about additional staff members? Are there ways that we can increase our diversity? And, you know, that's looking at, you know, again, Kirk tirelessly works with local colleges and universities to get the word out, speaking to folks. We are always willing to go and, you know, have a Zoom meeting and talk to folks, but to date, we haven't gotten a lot of applications for our jobs, and we certainly don't have a lot of diversity in our applicant pool. But yes, he can talk about some of those things.
Okay.
The second item I had on staff report is the June case preview, and just so everyone's aware, Mark and, you know, Brian co-lead the land use administration team, so they generally take turns going back and forth and presenting the consent agenda. It just happened to be Brian's time today, but next month it will be Mark's turn. So
Well, what I'll do next time is look down there and see who's on the end. Easiest way to do it.
But
Yeah.
Mark, if you would just go over our caseload for next month. It's similar to this one. but-
Yes, we got 8 total items, 3 continued cases, 2 new rezoning requests, 1 elected special use permit, 1 planning board review, 2 preliminary subdivisions, and the 1 text amendment that Chris already talked about with the graphics. And just wish everybody a good summer. We've got this summer solstice there on the bottom right. I asked Brian, are we getting Stonehenge into Winston-Salem? But it's a summer solstice, so enjoy your daytime.
I thought maybe Stonehenge wasn't in compliance with the sign ordinance. They had a really long amortization period.
Apparently.
I believe they've been grandfathered in.
Mr. Chairman, the only other thing I will mention is, you know, Kirk is out. Her mom is in town because her niece graduates from college on Saturday. So she'll be attending those. So she'll be with her mom tomorrow. My daughter graduates from college tomorrow, so I will not be here.
Oh, man.
So it will be slim pickings. If anyone needs anything, just call in and talk to Tara, and she can probably get in touch with whoever you need to. If it's an emergency, call me. You've got my number. But there won't be a lot of folks in the office tomorrow.
Which college?
Appalachian.
Congratulations.
Oh, good, congrats.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I had under staff report.
All right, is there anything else for the good of the order?
We have a motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned.
29 minutes.